Hello, everybody. Welcome to Follow Everton. Here with a little bit of an exclusive for you today. I'm joined by my good friend Chad. How are you, Chad? You okay?
I'm doing great. Great to be on with you. Looking forward to talking all things Sean Dyche and Everton.
Yes, that's the one. We're likely to be joined by a couple of other members later. I think Ryan's going to be joining in, potentially another one of our members as well. So we appreciate everyone who's joining in with us today, just listening to what we've got to say. So before we get on to anything, just a little heads up, a little thank you for everyone who's watching, everyone who's supporting us, and also anyone who has smashed the like button, subscribe, or anything like that. If anyone else hasn't, please feel free. It helps us out as well. The more people we have, the more we can grow, and the more we can do bigger things like this. Where we look into Everton and a little bit more depth, really. So just a little bit about what we're doing today. We're all a bit aware of the insecurity around Sean Dyche's job. A lot of reports in the media that he potentially could be relieved of his duties fairly soon, and a lot of obviously rumours around in terms of who will or who may become the Everton manager. So what we've done, I'll have a little bit of a talk in regards to who we're linked with, potentially who's out there, whether that's closer to home or further away abroad, and we'll just check our own thoughts and look out to see what you say in terms of who we've got, who we think's best, and who we could have. First of all, to start off, we'll start off with Graham Potter. I'm sure we all know a little bit of his history. Made his biggest name at Brighton, fairly progressive football. Moved on to Chelsea where he struggled a little bit, and he's been without a job now for around about a year or just under a year. So he is probably the most linked person with Everton at the moment, although also linked with West Ham. Chad, any thoughts before we go into statistics and talking about Graham Potter in terms of the likelihood of us getting him at the moment, or what you think of him in general?
Yeah, I think this is all coming together very quickly. It appears, the talk of there being interest from West Ham and Potter as well. The long talk of there being long sustained interest from the Freaking Group, and Potter has really kind of pushed his name to the forefront and really led to us wanting to talk about him today. Corey, can we circle back on Sean Dyche real quick? We had a press conference with him earlier today as he talked about the Peterborough FA Cup match. What were your thoughts on Sean Dyche this morning? Some people were questioning, like, is he even in the building? I know there were rumors all over social media. A friend of a friend said that he was already sacked. And where are you at with Sean Dyche, and what did you think of the press conference today?
He sounded a little bit different. He didn't sound as aloof as he usually does. Whether that's because he's feeling the stress and he thinks that he needs to claw a little bit further, a little bit back on what he's lost in terms of the media, because the media's given him a bit of an easy ride so far. So I think he's just trying to claw a bit of that back. His demeanour seemed a little bit different today as well. We've got Stevie joining us there as well. You all right, Stevie?
Yeah, how's it going?
All good, mate. All good. Just getting started. As Emma said here, not as cocky. Yeah, he wasn't as aloof. He wasn't as forward and answering back too much. He seemed to had a bit more humility, which probably would have served him in good stead. But I think it's a little bit too little too late now, isn't it? Most of the fans have turned on him. The result of the main part, but his demeanour also doesn't help that.
Yeah, my biggest issue. I think. Oh yeah. Stevie, what did you think of the press conference today?
He's probably on borrowed time right now, and the problem that we've got is I don't know whether we've lined up a replacement. I thought we kind of anticipated that December was going to be a rough ride, Corey. I think the results weren't quite the results we expected that we would get, or vice versa, but we've ended up basically with the same tally. Where it gets me is the fact that we've only scored once in open play in 10 games, and that is unfortunately sackable football. You can't. Even though I think the guy's done probably a better job than many of the predecessors before him, the writing's on the wall now, and I don't know what the latest is today. Obviously, the press conference was delayed, and obviously Peterborough is on Thursday. We would need to probably hit them for 5 or 6 to kind of boost the confidence, have any chance of Dyche kind of staying in that job. What do you think?
I think the owners would likely accept a 2-0 win. I think a 1-0 won't be enough. I think the owners accept a 2-0 win because I think that's where they're at the moment, is by not being too aggressive. But I think as fans, we need a comprehensive victory. We need to be dominant in the ball, and we need to have plenty of chances, because even if we get a 2-0 win and it's just 2 chances that we've had, it still shows that we can't create any chances. And like you said, the results are a big part of it, but it's the performance and the fact we just don't look like we've got any kind of bite at all.
Gentlemen, this team is broken. This team
from that side has affected us because he was a big part last season in the goals, and he's been absent for quite a lot of the last few games, and we've not really cut through. We've not really shown the threat, and you could say that the strikers have not even had much to go after. So it's not entirely just on the strikers. I mean, for me, we've never been brave enough to go take Decore out and play 2 of them up front. So you could argue that that's the manager not being brave enough, playing not to lose rather than to win. And it's just caught up with us now. It's a lot of fans are fed up of actually watching us. We're so boring. But you can blame the strikers, and we could try and recruit the strikers. But I think it's gone beyond that now. I think it's gone too far where I feel like we need to give it more time. I'm worried that if we don't get a new manager bounce, we'll be so far gone that we probably won't be able to recover.
Yeah. And like you said, Chad, it's a mentality thing, isn't it?
We're broken. Like the talk of needing a 2-0 or changes up front at striker, we're way past that. This team is broken. It's to the point where something needs to be done with Sean Dyche immediately. This team no longer has confidence in him or his tactics or his approach. He is not embedding confidence in his players. The one thing, people have given him credit today for being more humble in his press conference today, but the one comment he made, maybe it was from Julia or someone else, they said, what is the biggest thing that needs to be changing? And rather than take that on himself, the first thing he said was talked about the transfer window. And if you're a player in that dressing room right now and you hear the thing coming out of Sean Dyche's mouth is the biggest thing that needs changing is additions to the roster, and not him kind of taking responsibility for his emphasis on protecting the V and maintaining your shape. What are you supposed to think? If I'm Jack Harrison and I'm playing with no confidence, how is Sean Dyche giving me the confidence to go out and perform? If I'm Jesper Lindstrom and I had a bad spell last year and I'm having an unproductive spell this year, how do I feel confident to go out and score goals? Like, Sean Dyche has put this team in a position where there's no amount of a lucky 2-0 that's going to be able to save or salvage this situation in any way. So I am glad we're talking about David Moyes and Potter. And I know you have a laundry list of really great potential Everton managers. I'm excited to get there because at this point, I cannot continue to see the same thing over and over again. Corey, I'm just done. I'm just done with Sean Dyche. I'm done with his tactics. I'm done with protecting the V at all costs. And I'm done with him throwing players like Abdoulaye Doucouré, who was probably in the worst form of anyone in the entire Premier League, on for 90 plus minutes in a Premier League match. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I agree. You watch him and he done all right in them 3 games. We were quite defensive. That's all we had to do was be defensive. But when it came to the game where we've tried to be a bit more expansive, Nottingham Forest, but he can't play a possession game. If teams are playing a press on him, he just struggles. He's not got the technical ability. He's never had great technical ability anyway, but he's not got it. He can be an impact sub late on maybe, but that is it. And I think Dyche's persistence with him is a crutch at which we can beat him with, essentially. You know what I mean? So in terms of then, obviously, you're done with Dyche. Myself, I'm fed up. I want him gone. Is there, before we get into managers, is a specific style of play that you think is within the Everton identity, or you'd like us to work around going forward?
Yeah, I think that's the question of the day, right? I mean, what if we had our way? How do we want this team to play? And I don't have a preference on a certain formation or a certain style. I don't need them to look like Brazil. I don't. What I want is a coherent sensibility that persists throughout the entire footballing organization. So if we are going to now be a part of a multi-club model, from the Freakins. That's going to include Roma. That's going to include Caen, I believe, is the French team they have as well. Then these teams should all be playing alike. We should be able to interchange like for like within the system. And we're at a situation right now where Roma is playing, a 3-5-2 essentially. And they play a very different style of football than us. Now, granted, they've had some managerial changes and Claudio Ranieri is not going to be there long term, but I would love to see a cohesive strategy or a vision that all of the clubs are following. At least that'll kind of give us that North Star and a way to approach the football going forward. So no, I don't think I have a preference in how I want them to play. More entertaining would certainly be welcome, because I'm tired of spending hours upon hours and being bored out of my mind watching Everton. But no, I just want wins and I want goals. Stevie, what about you?
Yeah, it's just the same. Sorry about the connection before, Chad. Great to see you. Happy New Year. It's just at the moment, I'm not even bothered about the performance. I want wins and goals. Just a few goals, really. I mean, but for Pickford, I don't know where we would be. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be down. But we can't do what we did in 2004, 2005, where we just try to win every game 1-0. At the moment, it seems like tactically we've kind of come. I mean, you have to remember, it's not that long ago that we were talking on this stream about Everton shipping so many goals and having to kind of sort the back out. I am pleased to say that shipping goals generally has been a thing that we've kind of dealt with, but we just kind of deal with one problem and then we have another. I haven't really got an answer at this point, other than the fact that we're just easy to defend against. Unless we get a set piece, there's no threat through the middle. That it's really easy to set up against Everton, because the fullbacks are not strong enough. That midfield, the legs are going. There's a lot of defensive players, and the strikers have been feeding off scraps for a number of years. So we're pretty easy to write a pre-match tactics board for, because it's like, well, get your set pieces and then you've sorted the game. And also, there's a vulnerability from the fact that the crowd, especially at Goodison, are anxious, because we feel that we're going to get beat, and we don't have that sense of confidence that we should have. It probably wouldn't take an awful lot to turn this around, a couple of 1-0 victories, but is that good enough? I think we've been on a slippery slope for too long now. So, although I hate to say it, I'm on the bandwagon of Dyche has to go now, sadly. And it's a thank you, Dyche. Thank you for what you did, because, the points deduction and everything he's had to deal with is just, it's been hard, but it's almost the impossible job.
No, I agree. It's we've really struggled, haven't we, since Carlo left, to get the balance between can we attack, can we defend, and there's basically no homogenous way to get it, so we're solid all the way around, or at least solid at one way and good the other. It's both extremes, and I do think part of it is the team, but I also think we've suffered from really negative managers in Benitez and divisive managers and Sean Dyche, and then tactically inept, non-organised managers in terms of Frank Lampard. So we need someone who has a track record, doesn't have to be at the highest level, but has a track record of taking players which aren't fantastic and improving them in the way that David Moyes does, and also potentially managers, in my eyes. We need more attacking football. I like higher intensity, a bit more pressing. That's what I personally like. But we need the manager to be pragmatic, so that they're not just fully focused on going forward and sacrificing your defence. They're willing to change, like Iraola did when he went to Bournemouth. He come in far too attacking, really struggled at the back, wasn't very responsible, and then after a poor start, he started to be a bit more solid without giving up and going too far the other end and giving out his attacking ability. So I think we need someone who's flexible, someone who's willing to be pragmatic when need be, but who plays progressive, probably high intensity kind of football. I think that's what gets Evertonians, Scousers all around the world. I think that's, for me, that's very much a part of the identity of this club. It's very much working class, and it's very much a case of we like nice football, but we want it to be a bit of a bit of aggression. I
think the style of Everton has always been, it's better as a family club, we just want the players to cross the line and give it everything. And then if we can win, especially against teams where we're not expected to, that means everything. To say the school of science and everything else like that, we're light years away from being able to play with any kind of style. The last time I think we had any style was when we had Pienaar and Baines, and we had a decent midfield and we had some guile, and we didn't realise at the time, but that was a very good side.
Well, I think the issue was, obviously, you had such a strong top four, didn't you? And it was so difficult to break through that we were always knocking on the door and we never did. And then just as we fell off, the rest of the major top four, as they were known, started to kind of struggle and disband. And obviously, them teams have been in around it, but the opportunity's been there for other clubs to kind of get in. Your Leicesters, your Villas, your Newcastles and things like that. Yet they've had their own bit of investment in. But I think a lot of the teams around them, which would usually just be a closed shop, have dropped off. It's just a shame that what would be our perfect opportunity, we've fell off a cliff, not just dropped off. So.
Yeah, I mean, other sides have improved, haven't they, Chad? But at the same time, we probably haven't. We've taken a long time to strengthen key areas. It's easier said than done because the market prices a lot of people out, especially teams like Everton, where we've got financial troubles.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, it's disheartening to watch a team like Forest, and who I really love watching, and their style of play. They're able to play in a manner similar to the way Dyche would like to set his team up, but we don't have those. He doesn't have those tools at his disposal. He doesn't have the pace on the outside. He doesn't have the creativity. He doesn't have an aggressiveness or a relentlessness to get a goal. So I do recognize that Sean Dyche has been handcuffed. But I would love to even see Everton play that style. Like you had said, we don't need to be. We're not trying to reinvent the sport. I just want them to play sound football and be competitive and give proper effort. So if it has to be a progression and evolution where we improve the side now and we can start playing in the same manner that Forest is playing, not at that level, obviously, since they're doing it so well, then that would be welcome. But I mean, yeah, right now we got to stay safe. We got to play better. Something has to change.
Certainly, I agree. That leads us on then. So should we start talking about managers? What I'll do, I'll move us on to our first one. He's already been out. Now, I'm aware that a few people in the comments have updated me on the situation with Graham Potter. As far as I was aware, going into setting all this up and scheduling everything, West Ham were favourites for Potter. I know they'd spoken to him in person. The last thing I was aware of was that they'd offered him a contract. He preferred to go to West Ham, but the contract they'd offered was far too short. He wanted a longer term one, which I would have thought that we'd have been more than happy to give him 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. But thank you to a lot of our team in the comments, a lot of our followers in the comments, let me know that apparently at this point, we've now dropped out the race to sign Potter. So what we'll do, we won't spend too much time on Potter, but we still have a little talk because things can always change. You can always throw in a lot of money at them if you want to go wild. So I'll just lean. I know you can all read it, but I'm just going to read off what we know about Graham Potter. He's a project manager, more long term. He plays more progressive, fluid football, maybe not high intensity, but certainly possession based. He's worked well with the director of football. We know that. And he took a team like Brighton and took him a lot further, very much than what Moyes done with us. Took them a lot further than played above where they should be. However, he struggled at Chelsea, maybe a team full of egos, and also the way he likes to play, 5 at the back or 3 at the back, it would require probably considerable personnel change. We wouldn't be able to play with the 3 big centre-backs of Branthwaite, O'Brien, and Tarkowski, would we, lads?
No. Let me ask you this, though. And maybe this is a broader question about Everton and not just Graham Potter. How attractive is the Everton job right now? Because if we are competing against the likes of West Ham, I would argue West Ham is a big club, just as big as Everton. Where would Everton find their advantage in a situation like that?
It'd be similar, I think. Similar. You've obviously got Bramley Moore, and you've got the new investment and the fact that we're a sleeping giant with a very good pedigree, but very similar in terms of, do you want to live in London or do you want to be in the Northwest. There's not a lot in it, if I'm honest. West Ham struggling a lot. They've gone downhill since Moyes. They didn't know they had it good. The match I saw, it's not a football stadium, by the way, where they're playing at the moment. It's bizarre. But the match I saw was very, very poor. And I think that you could toss a coin and you could argue that Everton's got probably a more richer history, but then you could argue for West Ham as well because they've got a great history. There's very little in it. It's just whether you want to live down south or not. I think there's that little in it.
Yeah, I agree. I would say they're probably a little bit more attractive than we are, considering how much we've been circling the drain, as I guess people like to say. I think West Ham are confidently going to be safe this season. They've already pulled ahead from what is the real relegation fight. They're just massively, massively underperforming. And that's obviously why there's so many doubts in Lopetegui is likely to leave the club. So what I would say that we've got over them, I don't think managers care too much about stadiums personally, especially someone like Potter. I think he struggled at Chelsea with the egos and everything like that. So potentially a stadium where he's further away, it might be better for him. It might be better to kind of have that kind of patience to implement a team if he's not got a fan base right on you, because even Bramley Moore is going to be steep and intimate in terms of pitch to the fans. But what we do have, like I said, he's a project manager. The chance for him to completely overhaul the squad if we stay up, in terms of obviously the amount of players we've got out of contract in the summer, the new owners, and hopefully the end of massive FFP struggles or profit and sustainability struggles. So what I'd hope from there is we've got a big opportunity for a manager who wants to come in, really stamp their authority, their identity, and make something like a definitive project for them.
We have absolutely no identity, Corey. If you ask me what Everton's style of football is, I couldn't tell you.
100%. And I think
Forest have got a style of football. There are many sides that have, and there's some that don't, but we definitely don't. Our style of football is hope that we kind of don't concede and nick a goal and a set piece. Like it's not right, but that's basically how we're set up.
Yeah, it's lower league. It's David versus Goliath, isn't it, in the FA Cup third round kind of football?
Yeah, you could argue that there's more that you can morph into your own styles if you do have that. I mean, the fact that Potter was kind of, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, because Chelsea have not been necessarily great over the last 6-7 years, but they chose Potter as a replacement. So, I mean, that's a good sign, but he didn't do well. So, but it's, again, Chelsea's a hard, it's bars. It's a very high standard. Like, you don't finish in the top 3, you're going to be sacked. I remember Ancelotti was there and they didn't tolerate winning the cup and so on. So struggling at Chelsea is not indication of future performance at a lower club. I mean, I remember a time where Everton were always there or thereabouts with Chelsea, if not better than Chelsea. But since they've had investment, they've always been better than us and they have higher standards than us, and they won't take... Do you know what? Many clubs would not accept the way that we've been. But if we don't pull the trigger now, when are we going to pull the trigger?
Yeah, it's I mean, there's still some belief that he'll be able to see it out till the end of the season. I can't see that happening now. That's coming less and less likely. I think his days at Everton are very much numbered. And again, to reiterate the points, more because of the lack of style of play and the lack of hope going forward, as opposed to the results, I think.
Where do you think that if we did get Potter in, and it's debatable, I've just done some research, some bookmakers still think that he's in the running for the Everton job, joint favourite with Moyes. Others obviously say that, it's done and dusted, he's not going to be part of the picture. What do you think the problems are with our current squad? Why don't you think that you could get the most? Because you mentioned the personnel change. Where do you think the problem would lie?
Well, so he likes to play with wing backs, okay? Whether it's forward at the back and they switch to 3 in transition, like a fullback goes quite wide, plays high up the pitch, or whether he just plays with 5 at the back. So your wing backs need to be progressive. Now, you could argue that that may suit Nathan Patterson because he's having to defend a little bit less. But Michalenko is certainly not a wing-back. You need really fit, aggressive midfielders because they're going to press all over the pitch. They really press high up and they really like to support the strikers as well. So you have to be technically good and you have to be fit. We don't have that at all in our midfield. They're the two biggest things I think is the issue. And I mentioned the centre-backs because you have to be a technical centre-back to play in that kind of system. Now, you can have one centre-back who's maybe less technical as long as you can pass a ball. You don't need to be silky. But to play 3 at the back, 5 at the back, you need at least 2 of your 3 centre-backs to be good on the ball, to be very much your modern centre-backs who can drop out wide, good turn of pace, and who are good on the ball, got a nice bit of agility and to kind of get away from defenders when they play that press because there's a lot more responsibility on you as a defender to start that attack.
I think the general problem with our squad is that we lack players that can dribble, pass, and shoot. And those are kind of the 3 qualities that you need to do as a successful footballer. So, no, I think Potter would come in. I think he would be immediately frustrated with everyone but Iliman Ndiaye and Jared Branthwaite and maybe Mangala. Like, everyone else is not up to the standard that we saw from him at Brighton. I think the standard that he tried to instill at Chelsea. Chelsea's a shit show, or was a shit show. So it's not a surprise that it didn't work out there. Graham Potter is my dream scenario here. He's my dream candidate. I hope it happens. It doesn't look like it's going to. I was hoping that it was going to be Sean Dyche would ride us out this season, and then Potter would be able to come into the summer. There would be money to spend, and he could start building the squad in the image of, in the way that he would like to see it built out. But unfortunately, it looks like West Ham might kind of beat us to the punch, unfortunately. So I'm curious to see who else you have on your list. But us talking about Graham Potter just makes me more and more depressed that I don't feel like it's going to happen.
No, look, I don't think it's going to happen myself. I still didn't. Things can change quickly, but I think before all this new information that would come to light to us, I just thought if West Ham are in the running, he's going to go to them. He's going to be much more confident to go into them. He's already got players there he can use. It's less of an overhaul that he'll need, and they're a lot safer, so he doesn't need to worry about that. That'll take us on to our next potential manager as well. Another one that's quite popular, it's quite well known, and that's David Moyes. Again, as you can see at the top, he's unattached. Most of us here know a lot about him. His time at Everton. Obviously moving to Manchester United didn't really work out there, although I don't think he was given a fair crack at it. Going to Spain wasn't the best of experiences, and he's been a bit up and down at West Ham, but obviously got that European trophy, which was massive to him. And there might be some West Ham fans now who probably would have liked him to have never left. In regards to it, just in general, what's your opinions on the possibility of David Moyes?
Oh man, that's like my soft spot. Like I started following Everton under David Moyes, and the idea of him coming back just seems right. It just Everton and David Moyes are, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, or at least that's seemingly where it should be. I hated when he went to Manchester United in the first place. The thing about David Moyes is I think there's some hesitation to want to welcome him back only because it doesn't feel like a fresh step forward. It feels like, would he be a caretaker manager? Does he have new ideas? Is he a modern footballing manager? I think he can be. I think the squad I think this squad right now is much more capable, would be more capable under his stewardship. I think there are people here that could play for him now. I would love to see David Moyes come in for the rest of this season and into next, lead us into Bramley Moore, Doc. And as long as there was like some kind of strategic vision for the future from TFG.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sorry about that. JJ woke up. He's not sleeping that well at the moment, as most Evertonians wouldn't. But he's 5 years old and asked me why Everton keep losing. I'm not quite sure how to answer that. But going back to Moyes, I think you're spot on. There's an element of romance that would come with Moyes launching Bramley Moore Dock. in the Premier League from Everton. But how far ahead do we want to look? Because right now, I'm looking at the next game. I'm thinking, are we even going to beat Peterborough at home in the Cup? I'm worried that that's the last game ever at Goodison. I'm worried that we're going to lose. Is it probably going to go to penalties? It's probably one round, isn't it? How are we going to score? And all those things. I mean, thinking about what the manager might be after a Moyes launching in Bramley Moor, I just want to think about immediate safety at the moment. I think Moyes isn't guaranteed, but he certainly, if anyone can make sure Everton are steered to safety, it's him. The thing is, he said he doesn't want to be part of a relegation battle. Is that a mind game to say, I'm going to come to Everton and we're not going to be part of the relegation battle because I'm going to get you quickly out of it? Or is that more of a, I definitely don't want this job?
I think it's a case of he doesn't want a relegation fight. However, I think obviously the relationship that we've got with Moyes, the love that he has for the club. Now, I'm not his biggest fan after what he did when he went to United. His first game back, I'd boo him. And then after that, I'd cheer him on just because I think it's the least he deserves for what he said about Everton.
Do you mean his performances or the manner or what?
Oh, the manner, the way he was talking about Everton, Fellaini and Baines, he should go to a big club just after he's left us. I still leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Now, look, these things happen. He's spoke very, very highly of Everton recently. He's done a lot of things in relation to the club because of obviously the last season at Goodison Park. So I've heard interviews where he talks so fondly about Everton. You can tell he loves us. Even though he got that trophy at West Ham, you can tell how much he loves the club. Obviously a major part of his life and his career. So I'm not saying I dislike him, but I've got like a bitter taste in my mouth from that. So I'd boo him day one, just so he knows how I feel.
It's not as Marmite as Benitez, but there's an element where I think that the fan base is semi-divided, and I think it will be one of those where if he swims, then great. And if he doesn't, it's a bit like I told you so. And it's probably a 60-40 split. I mean, please put in the comments, Moyes, yay or nay. But I'm pretty sure from people I've talked to that it's very split as to whether you get Moyes back or not. One thing's for certain, it's not worked with this catalogue of so-called good managers. And we've not progressed at all since Moyes left. But one thing we have done is we've got investment, we've got new owners, and we've got a new stadium. Now, that's no good unless you can put 11 players on the play field that can actually knock the ball in the onion bag, because we can't. We've kind of engineered a way to play terrible attacking football. I don't know how it's possible, but we're definitely the worst in the league when it comes to kind of the final threat. Is Moyes going to be the man that does that? Because I see him as a defensive manager, guys.
Yeah, I mean, as we can see on the screen here, his tactics are very similar to Dyche, aren't he? He plays 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-1-1. We know that from his time with us. Even at West Ham, he's played that same formation. He's pragmatic. He's focused on defence first. The phrase "knife to a gunfight" rings true for a lot of Everton fans as well. We remember them comments. Now, the difference is when he plays teams of a similar level, he's not as much of a low block kind of manager. He'll do that when he has to against the more dominating clubs. So whereas I think Dyche is very much defence first and nothing else, especially this season, Moyes is willing to at least attack teams and go at them. He'll want us to press a little bit more. One of the issues that I think we have when we watch is that, we don't have any style. But if we are going to play to a target man, you need someone close to him. And we don't have anyone who gets close to the target man. And you will know from, again, a time when he was at us and from West Ham, he likes his number 10 to stick close to the striker, or his wingers to get tight to the striker and get the flick-ons when you're going long. So I think he's, especially for the Everton fans who are concerned, especially with the players that we've got, he would be the most natural and easy change, the easy transition from the current tactics.
But is it just more of the same, Chad? Are we just going from one? I mean, Dyche is not that bad. You can't say he's responsible at the end of the day for putting the final ball in the net. He sets up the team. So if we're going to have another manager with the same players, we're just going to end up with the same scenario.
Yeah, I would agree I would agree. Dyche is that bad, because this is what we saw at Burnley. This is what we've seen now for 2 years running at Everton. His team is incapable of scoring a goal from open play. So just because they may believe in a similar style, that doesn't mean you're going to get similar results. David Moyes is a competent manager that can instill confidence in his players to go out and do a job. And that is not something that we've seen from Sean Dyche. I think if David Moyes was able to come in, I think we would be comfortably clear of relegation in a matter of a couple months. And I think we'd be building some serious momentum going into Bramley Moore next year. They're just because the teams may look similarly, I think it's unfair to David Moyes to say that the results would be similar.
Yeah,
I mean, time will tell, but
Yeah.
I think that the fan base is divided. See if anyone says. We've got some regulars saying Moyes with cash would be interesting. Dyche isn't that bad. It's going to be very divided. Ultimately, you might be onto something, with him getting more out of players, but maybe that's just us thinking that the grass is greener. And what we've seen is so many managers. Even Ancelotti could only get us 8th, and that's Ancelotti. So we know that the problems are kind of very deep rooted into like recruitment strategy, money to spend on quality, so on and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
In
Corey, who else
regards,
you got?
and just before we move on, then obviously a couple little things to worry about in terms of David Moyes, because a lot of people would think we want something a bit more progressive. So is he a short-term manager? Does he want too much control? Because he very much likes the Sean Dyche way of no director of football. He's very much in control. That's my concern with Moyes as well, because I do think he's a natural step up from Dyche, but I think he wants a lot of control in the team. If he was there and he said, I'll be there for 6 months and I'm gone, then yeah, I'd do it straight away. But I don't think that's the case. And that's where I'd be concerned. He'd want a longer term contract. And I don't want that kind of football and that kind of managing for that long.
Yeah, then I guess we're going to need some kind of understanding of where Kevin Thelwell sits right now, because his contract is up at the end of the season, and we don't know where the freaking group stand on him.
Then there's the talk, isn't there? If anyone ever watched The Overlap with David Moyes on it, he said that is what he starts to like a lot more now. He just misses going to watch players play. He used to do a lot of this, not the main scouting, but he'd go and do that final. He just loves watching footballers and see who he wants to take onto his team. So would then he come into the club, kind of like a Ralph Rangnick did at United, went from, although it didn't work, from being a manager short term, got a new manager in, and he became the director of football. He's got a standing in the business. He'd have a bit of respect there. He likes to scout. He wouldn't do full scouting, but he'd be very much involved in that side of things, the development of the club. Is that something that would potentially work at Everton? And do you think that would actually be a realistic shout? Don't know.
I don't know.
I'll tell you what, we'll move on. Next one, again, someone else with some links to the club. Former Everton midfielder, goal scorer in a 1-0 derby win. Lee Carsley, current manager of the England under-21s. Short period in charge as a caretaker manager of the full men's national team. Obviously, he won the under-21s World Cup, didn't he? I think it was with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. So he's got experience at winning. His win ratio is 75%. But can he make that step up into permanent men's football? And would he want to be a club manager as opposed to a international manager?
Certainly more progressive option. I remember Carsley. I'm old enough to know what he was like as a player, and he was brilliant for Everton. And many of our 1-0 wins in that season that I actually was referring to earlier, where as a result of his performances, and obviously the likes of Nigel Martin, there were a lot of leaders in that side. Carsley would be a progressive step for Everton. You'd probably want to do things longer term, but I don't necessarily see that it would be a long-term appointment. I think it could even be him and Baines or something in as a get to the end of the season type mentality. But certainly offers more of that threat. And if our problems are rooted with scoring at the moment, he would bring that. But he, you know, as a midfielder, he was combative. He was actually defensive midfielder. So he's blending a very good defensive mindset with a more progressive outlook, and we need that. We need some sort of level of excitement, and this is more an exciting option for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I this is the style of football that I would like to see Everton be playing, something with some pace, something with some overlapping and attacking action. I wish I haven't been able to see the England under-21s play, so it's hard for me to see how that style or how his style would look at Everton. I can imagine it. But this would be interesting. I don't feel like this is the direction the Freakins would go in. I think they're going to want someone with Premier League experience, a proven Premier League manager. But as a short-term caretaker, then yeah, Lee Carsley's incredibly interesting.
Why not put him in and see how he gets on? And if he does well, give him the opportunity. At some point, he's got to step up. Many of those so-called England golden generation players have been absolute flops of managers. Just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're a great manager. And it's very hard to predict. But at some point, we probably need to be a bit bolder. Dyche was a needs must, but we can't go backwards and keep selecting defensive managers and then come on these streams and complain that we've not scored goals. We need somebody that's going to actually take us forward. You can't win the games. And yes, it's good to be solid defensively, and I'm glad that we have kind of become better, but let's face it, we are very dependent on Pickford. If he was to go, we just ship goals. Lee Carsley, what do you think, Corey?
Me, I like him as a manager. Just to answer Chad's, obviously not knowing about the under-21s, he plays more of a 4-3-3. He will drop into 4-2-3-1 if he has to, but he plays more 4-3-3, which means that he'll have one holding midfielder typically, and the other two very much get about the pitch. It allows the wingers to get forward, they overload the wide areas. It's a lot more expansive football. What it does mean is we'll see a lot more goals, but if he was manager, we'd also concede a lot more. Now, it's a risk and reward kind of situation, and I think we need to take that risk because we don't attack at all, and 1-0s are not doing anything for us when we don't get many of them anyway. So I like the football he plays. There's a nice intensity to it. My concern is, despite his win ratio and his points per game being quite high, is that he is still quite young and that lack of experience. I think there is the potential, and I could see him being quite naive. So if he was to come in for the last 6 months, which I don't know if he'd do that anyway, it's one of them where it's a big risk, and that could be something that sends us down. I really like Lee Carsley, and if we were to be safe for this season and start next season, he would probably be someone that he'd probably be in my top 2-3 picks that I'd want as Everton manager, because I like the football that he plays and I'd be willing to take a chance on him.
Yeah, you can see that the dilemma that they would have, because they'd have to look at, first of all, the grass may not be greener with someone like Moyes, and then this type of appointment where it's a bit more of a wild card. But certainly he has the promise to not only tick the box of being a former player, because we generally we don't win anything unless we have former players, but also that kind of progressive, young and English manager. So we just don't know. We can't second guess him.
That's it. And look, if we look at the teams that have picked managers that a lot of people don't really know about or took a risk on them, a lot of them teams have done fairly well. Obviously, Brighton are probably the biggest name for that. Bournemouth as well. So at some points, you do have to take that risk. And if you get it right and you support them correctly, then it can work out really well for you. And it can, especially if you're trying to create an identity and a project, sometimes them younger, less heard of managers are the best ones to have in, because you give them that time. And they're less likely to potentially leave you mid-season like Carlo did for Real Madrid. I know we left at the end of the season, but it was all agreed to mid-season, weren't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure I can blame Carlo for leaving for Real Madrid from us. What? Do we have any other options to go through, or we can't?
Yeah, we've got four locally or four nationally, and then we've got four across Europe. I've also got a list of a couple more we'll go through as well. Even less likely to join us than the ones we've had so far, but it's just nice to talk about who we've got. So the next one and the last one we've got in depth for nationally is Kieran McKenna, obviously the manager at Ipswich Town. Doing a very good job. He's took a team that's essentially League One. A lot of them players are still the same. You've still got Nathan Broadhead. He played in that win against Chelsea. Bear in mind that he's an academy product of us. Stayed till he was well past the age that we should have let him go. And he was a League One player. He took him into the Premier League, and he's still doing well with Ipswich Town. Now, the caveat for that is, before we start talking, obviously, his tactical style and things like that. I'm going to put a damper on it because I just don't think he would join us mid-season. This is something that I would think if Dyche was to stay for the rest of the season and Ipswich went down, he'd be someone we could potentially go for if there weren't better offers elsewhere in England.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to say about this right now. It doesn't seem like a likely possibility, certainly a name for the future. We have to see what happens with them, obviously, if they go down or they stay up. But I appreciate what he's done with them. He certainly seems to have an eye for talent. Bringing in Hutchinson, that right midfielder, who is a dynamic player. Yeah, he's certainly someone to watch.
Yeah, I think obviously he plays more progressive football, more attacking, but he's got where he's got to with this team because he's been pragmatic when he needs to be. He can still be quite solid defensively, relative to the players that he's got available at his disposal, but he does really like to attack. He's flexible. He changes his tactics in game. Plenty of times we've seen it where literally mid-game he's gone from 3-5 at the back to 4 at the back. Essentially, when teams are putting a high press on them, he drops from 5 at the back to 4 at the back. Defends, plays a long ball out wide, and just tries to counter attack from there. So I like him. I like him as a manager. I would really, really take him into consideration. I just don't think he would take us into consideration unless Ipswich are relegated and we stay up. What I will say, and it segues into the end of it, we've got a list of other potential managers. Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough. Now, he studied, he coached at the same time and got all his coaching badges at the exact same time as Kieran McKenna at Manchester United, very much from the same school of tactics. They play similar kind of football. He plays mainly a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I'm talking about Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough here. Again, they're a team that was struggling lower mid-table, and he's consistently got them towards the top end of the table. They're pushing for the playoff places at the moment. And again, he, similar to McKenna, he plays positive football and fairly attacking, but he will change his style and he will also be pragmatic when need to. So if McKenna's not an immediate option, potentially Michael Carrick is someone that we could get into again, I think would do well at Everton.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I agree. I don't think Kieran's going to look at us because that's something dramatic. Why would you? Why would you move when you're in a good position?
And I think depending on how well he does this season as well, there could be some big clubs. If anyone needs it, I mean, look, if Ange Postecoglou doesn't make it to the end of the season, or they decide to part ways with him, because obviously there's a bit of rumours there, McKenna could be Spurs manager, and he'll have a lot of money to work with and to play with, and I think he'd do very, very well as Spurs manager. So it's a case of, would he come to us? Would he deal with the Everton long-term project? Because again, he's getting better out of the players than what their level is supposedly, and give him a bit more money, which we'll be able to hopefully give him in the summer. I think it's an attractive proposition if there's no one else to pinch him from us, and if we're still in this division and Ipswich aren't.
Yeah, But I mean, honestly, it's a risk coming to Everton. If you're in his position right now, it's probably a bigger risk than where he is.
Yeah, no, I agree. With a bigger risk than that, coming into a team where it's fairly stable for him, to a team that's not stable, that's struggling a little bit. If I was McKenna, I'd probably take my chances with Ipswich as well. And even if he does go down, like I said, he's still got options elsewhere. Where if he comes to us and goes down, it's maybe somewhat of a poison chalice for him.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's no real benefit for him besides, pulling out a miracle and pulling us up the table. There's no reason for him to make the switch right now.
I agree. So looking further afield, another unattached one. A lot of the team plays a lot of the managers that you'll see in this presentation is very much managers who are unattached at the moment. There aren't many managers that are freely available, and I think that's the easiest for us to get in, not having to pay compensation. Managers who, yeah, look, they may be above where we are at the moment, our station in the league at the moment, but again, we got Carlo, considering who he was, someone at the level of Edin Terzic. That's not as big a step down as what Carlo Ancelotti did to get to Everton. Talking about him, so most recently, manager of Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, we all know how well they did in the Champions League last season, got to the final. He does play, again, progressive football, 4-3-3, the full-backs out wide, wingers will cut inside, very much progressive football, standard stuff, not exactly total football, but high intensity. They like to play attacking football. But again, he can be pragmatic. We've seen this in him gaining scalps during that Champions League run. Obviously, we've seen the performance against the likes of PSG in the later stages. They can do a little bit of the dark art as well. So he's shown that he can get results against teams that are considered much bigger or at least have much more expensively assembled squads.
Yeah, he's interesting. I don't think he would come to Everton mid-season. I think he would cost a tremendous amount of an investment of money by the Freakins. It would be an exciting appointment in the summer, no doubt, if he's looking for this kind of project.
But what I would say is, obviously we know what the Freakins did with Jose Mourinho. They just threw money at him and got him in as essentially a statement. So I actually think Edin Terzic may be one of the more likely ones on here, mainly because he's unattached, and also he's got something to prove. He really struggled with Dortmund at times last season. They finished much further below where they should have done. So I think he's got something to prove, especially after what happened last season. He's got a bit of Premier League experience. He was assistant to Bilic at West Ham when Bilic was there. So I think he's got something to prove, and I could see we could throw money at him. And he's unattached, so I just think that he is, for me personally, I think Edin Terzic is someone that we could certainly potentially entice. The concern would be he's not been linked with West Ham at all, and probably that may be our barometer. If they're linked with West Ham, can we try and pinch him? Or this is paining me to say, it's horrible to say, but whoever they don't go for, whoever they turn down, that should be the level that we're going for. And if they're not going for Edin Terzic, maybe it's because they've got no chance of getting him. And if he's got no chance, they got no chance. Neither do we.
Yeah. Well, hey, it looks like we have nearly 600 people on the stream. That's pretty exciting. So I want to thank all of you for joining and commenting. We appreciate that. We're glad we were able to bring this to you. Corey did a ton of work to research every one of these potential candidates, and so we can bring all of this to you here. Corey, do you want to zip through some of the other ones that you have? Then maybe we could talk about them as a group and get comments.
Yeah, of course. So another one, unattached, Roger Schmidt, German manager. A lot of time in the lower leagues in the German division, Leverkusen, PSV, most recently at Benfica. He won them the Portuguese league, I think it was last season or the season before. Again, high intensity, what I personally like. They are quite fluid, but they play quite aggressive football again, high press, the 4-2-3-1 to 4-3-3, overlapping, high fullbacks, which is what I like, wingers cutting inside. just the kind of football that we're completely missing and we're bereft of at the moment. Again, he is someone I very much like the look of. I like his tactics. Although he's very, very poor this season at the start of the season, found himself sacked in August at Benfica. You've got Sebastian Hoeneß. This one, I had an idea of at first, but Stuttgart have gone from strength to strength. So from when I first started, having thought about doing this stream, my chances of signing him have probably dropped way low. Stuttgart are currently mid-table in the Bundesliga, but they're doing very, very well in Europe at the moment. They were relegation fodder towards about 3 seasons ago. And then in that time, he's took them from relegation to mid-table to the Champions League, back in mid-table again. But again, they're dealing with that whole thing of like Brighton struggled with going to trying to juggle Europe with trying to juggle harder games, teams that are going to give you a harder time in the league as well. Again, 4-2-3-1, plays quite high up, high intensity. Attacking midfielders will move along. They will support the strikers. And he's willing to change into 3-4-2-1 when teams are playing higher press on them. So he can kind of bypass that counter press and play between the lines. We're missing a bit of flexibility with Sean Dyche. He's very much plan A and that's it. And then again, Dino Topmuller at Frankfurt, they're going from strength to strength this season. Third in the table, only Leverkusen and Bayern Munich doing better than them. A lot of people saying, is it down to the players that he's got? Mamouche, who is linked with City at the moment, is having a ridiculous season, probably one of the best players in the Bundesliga this season. But he's got a fairly small budget at Frankfurt, probably relative to their league at the moment. Or when he took over, Frankfurt are probably round about that size of what Everton are compared to the league, considering our form over the past couple of years. He was assistant to Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich, so you can imagine the kind of football he plays there. Again, fairly attacking out wide, wing back supporting your midfield, wingers cutting inside overloads on centrally, and again, a high press as well. I'm sure you can kind of see where I'm going from with the managers that I've picked. And then notable mentions as well. Inigo Perez, who was Mino Iraola's assistant at Osasuna. When he left to go to Bournemouth, he took over. And then Palladino, Fiorentina, Italiano, Bologna, doing very well, pushing for Europe there. Like I mentioned there, Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough. And another one who's massively overperforming is Eric Roy at Brest. He's very, very pragmatic, very much a defence. He reminds me a lot of Moyes, to be fair, does Eric Roy. So, yeah, that's obviously what we've got so far. Any thoughts?
Well, it's a really comprehensive presentation, and I think it's great that you've put it together. And I hope somebody somewhere at Everton is kind of watching, and that these are on people's radars. I mean, I just think it comes down to appetite for risk, really, as well as who is genuinely interested in the job. We can't assume that these players, these managers and former players even want to take on what is seemingly an impossible project. Yeah,
I think obviously a lot of what we were going for was before there was the massive issue with Sean Dyche and his positions become more and more untenable. We were hoping to present this with the thought of going forward into next season. Managers who potentially like to take over, fresh start in the summer, the safety can put their own spin on things. I would have thought the likes of Topmuller, he'd certainly be someone who would take that chance. Hoeneß, I could see him even more so. The likes of Roger Schmidt and Edin Terzic from our European managers, they're the more likely we've got, because we are going to have to. We don't want to shop at the bargain basement for managers, but we need to go through.
I mean, these are unknown quantities in the Premier League, and then you have to say, well, if you're going to look at that, we haven't mentioned Southgate. Is that you just don't think he would be interested?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I don't want him, so it's probably a little bit of bias from my end of things. But number two, he has categorically stated that he wants a break from management. Well, he said he wants to change the things, which people assume it's going to be football. I don't see him coming to Everton. I don't think it's the environment for him. I don't think the fans would take to him. So for me, that's very much a non-starter.
Fair
At least
enough, but I mean,
all these managers in the summer was something we could have a conversation about.
I mean, it's good. If we get one of the managers that you mentioned, I'm sure that they're all very strong in their own right, but I'm not sure whether Everton's fan base are going to actually go, "Ooh, that's a really good appointment," because really, Ancelotti was the only eye-opener, really. People were mixed about Dyche. I felt he had a difficult job there, and maybe he's been given longer because of those difficulties. My feeling is, if we're going to act, we need to act now because we're still within the transfer window.
Yeah, at least while we can get one or two players in that can work around whatever manager we get in that works in their system.
Yeah,
There's no
you
point
come at the
buying
same
more
time as a manager,
players.
you make a few phone calls. I mean, you might be onto something with Southgate, but I don't believe everything I read when people say they don't want relegation scraps and they want to break from management and so on and so on. If the right call and the right salary comes calling with Southgate, you may be onto something, but of course he's got that kind of relationship with Pickford, and then obviously the spine of the team, and he knows other players as well. So maybe it's not right, but it would certainly show, from my point of view, some ambition if Everton got, say, Southgate with someone else English as his assistant, but maybe it's just not the right thing. And international football is very, very different from managing a club that is struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just don't think a lot of the fan base would take to him. I think he's very much similar to what I think he's better than Dyche, but I think he's very much similar to what Dyche does, and I personally just don't see it. In
What
regards
you
to what
think
we'll do,
Southgate is similar to Dyche?
yeah, I think he's far too nervous, far too pragmatic, and especially look, if he was playing that defensive with the players that England had at their disposal going forward, imagine how he'd play with the players that Everton have at their disposal. He would just completely be like shell the team.
Yeah.
What we'll do, so anyone in the comments,
the non-Englishman amongst this lot. I mean,
the one name that I find most interesting is the Vincenzo Italiano, because it sounds like a Simpsons character. Vinny Italian. I can get behind that. He has that club pushing for Champions League again. He hasn't been there very long at Bologna, but he's a really quality manager. I've watched them some, so that would be really exciting. I don't see him wanting to come to England right now, but that would be a name that would really excite me. No, these are really great names. They all seem. I hate to say that they all seem unlikely, because I feel like that's been the running theme of everything we've talked about. Everyone outside of Moyes has been unlikely, but that's probably the hand that we're going to be dealt right now. Unfortunately, I think that the pickings are going to be slim. Not everyone is going to want to take a midseason project like this. Not everyone is going to want to take on a project that has PSR issues the way Everton do. Regardless if the Freakins are going to be new, exciting owners willing to invest, that's not the environment right now. It's going to be very challenging. So my hope is that we figure out something with Sean Dyche soon. I would rather Leighton Baines take over the reins for the rest of the year than Sean Dyche, and then we evaluate over the summer. So
I
that's
like
kind
to
of
just
that's
throw
where
one
I'm at.
other option is that we bring in a really good striking coach, because I think if our problems are really rooted with the top of the field, bringing in somebody that can help galvanise that front, the front unit, and possibly experiment with playing two players up front, or even three. Because if we're losing, we might as well lose with going for it, because it's not working out at the moment.
I like the idea of Brozier out wide doing what Richarlison did for us. Yeah, he's a striker, but he's got some strength. He's got technical ability on the ball, so I think he can do some good work out wide, and then bring you more like your proper number 9s into play. ideally we need a better number 9 than what we've got, but I like the idea of that. In regards to, did you mention anyone from the States you're aware of, Chad, who potentially could be on the radar? We could pinch on the low key.
Oh, you're trying to get me in trouble. I know what you're doing. I could not possibly suggest a manager from North America and not get crushed in the comments. There is a local one that we have here in my part of the country. Wilfred Nancy is probably the best coach in North America right now. But he will coach in Europe someday, but he's probably not ready for the Premier League just yet. But I appreciate you setting me up for that one, Corey. Hey, I'm going to take off, lads. I got much to do back at home, but great seeing you and good work today, Corey.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, mate. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. See you guys.
See you.
Been brilliant.
What we'll do, Stevie, we'll start to wind down.
Before we been really great, Corey. Thanks for putting together all the effort. I know that there's been background work. Some of it has predated the recent news and the kind of speculation around Dyche's job. But just want to say thanks for the effort and for everyone for watching. I think 600 of watching live is just a small number of the real number of watching live, because that isn't the true number, probably well over 1,000. And of course, great content and some managers here where I think, speaking on behalf of the fan base, that maybe weren't on our radar, that could be quite an interesting one, as well as a few familiar foes.
Yeah, certainly. I appreciate the kind words. Also want to do so, obviously, there's plenty of people here. It's a good number that we've got. So thank you very much for everyone who's joined us. If anyone is able to, if you can smash the like button, share it, helps to go a long way, like we mentioned earlier. We'd really, really appreciate it. A lot of hard work's gone into this, and the better response we get from it, the more likely we are to put more in-depth content like this out, and the more I can kind of focus on bringing you some better content as well, guys. So appreciate it. If anyone wants to subscribe, like, anything like that, really goes a long way, and we appreciate it. We thank you all for joining us as well.
Yep, absolutely. Brilliant work. As I said, make sure you do tell everyone, and we'll see you on the next Everton stream here on Follow Everton. Obviously, Peterborough's the next game, isn't it, on Thursday, and 2 days for us to kind of prepare mentally for what is to come. And quite frankly, I have no idea what to expect on that one.
Yeah, and if anyone wants a little bit of a discourse, anyone has any ideas of managers that they've got an idea with, maybe lesser managers who they think is more adequate, anyone I've missed out, feel free to drop me a message on Twitter at Chips1878, or even at Follow Everton as well. Let us know who you think. It's good to have that discussion, and we can potentially revisit it when we eventually change manager, whether it is now in the next couple of days or whether it's towards the end of the season. But apart from that, from me, Stevie and Chad, have a lovely evening, Blues. Thank you very much. Up the Toffees.
See you soon.